Well, welcome to Bloom in Full Color, where we live life in high definition. Today, we are joined with Dave Hawley again, and then we've got Rhonda. And Rhonda has been working for Moss for, how long?
Going on 11 years.
Oh, just a little while.
Wow.
Okay, so you came on right after I came on. Okay, so Rhonda actually is Jill of many trades. And I always say Jill of all trades, master of none, but I think she's got a couple mastered. So she's so good at it, we keep throwing stuff at her. So Rhonda actually handles our custom planting department and is training to be our plant purchaser. She's an interim HR person occasionally and interim whatever else we task her with pretty willingly, which we appreciate. She also is the first person to plainly tell me no right to my face, and I really appreciate that. So, and that'll come up in our next episode. But today our topic is gardening for your health, or horticulture therapy is another way that you see it out in the world. And, first things first, we're going into, possible recession. Inflation's been a thing. How do you justify paying for plants in today's economy? Well, the first thing I tell people is would you like to be able to harvest your dinner right out of your garden? Do you like looking at pretty things? Do you want to keep up with the Joneses and be the envy of the neighborhood? Do you really enjoy green spaces? Do you entertain on your patio and there's a lot of people over? I mean, there's so many different ways to answer that question. But I brought both Dave and Rhonda on today because we all kind of come from a different section of our gardening habits. How many containers do you think you had last year, Rhonda?
Just at my house?
Yes, just at your house.
Oh, probably getting close to 20.
Okay, that's a lot.
Yeah, I have a drip system though.
Yes, you do. She is the whiz at drip, and I am going to get it figured out. Dang it! I want automatic watering. You don't have automatic watering?
I don't have automatic watering.
No, you and I talk about this. If we leave town, everything dies.
Yeah.
The kids and the wives and the husbands are not trained as well as we would hope. My girls give it their absolute best, but the week that they're with their mother, that doesn't always happen correctly.
If I have a container that's near my lawn,
or close to you,
then it's going to get, the sprinklers are timed.
Yeah.
Being on water restrictions, you got to have that. So it's.
Oh, I need to tell you the tricks of how I hack Twin Falls.
Oh,
we'll do
in
that.
the evening?
Yeah, in the middle. If you
start
water, you know what? City manager, who is a friend of mine, do not listen to what I'm about to say. I turned them on at midnight because then I can argue I started on whatever day I was supposed to.
That's right.
And I used to do it every night, but then my good friends at Windsor's take care of my sprinkler system, and they have me in compliance now.
Well, I've always prided myself.
To my disappointment, because I am a rebel.
I've always prided myself in having the greenest lawn in the neighborhood.
Okay.
Well, moving to Twin last year, I did not have the greenest lawn in the neighborhood because I couldn't keep the water on as often as I would like. And I always thought there would be some type of a water patrol. Oh, I drove by and you were watering. Well, I have new grass. I got to kind of water.
I kind of got to keep it alive. And you were in the middle of buying a house in the middle of the season, so it was ultimate chaos. So do you have big garden plans for this season?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I did pull out a couple fruit trees.
Okay.
Because they were in the front yard. I don't want a fruit tree in the front yard, so they were cherry trees. I've got cherry trees in the back. But we're going to do some container gardening. I'm too old now, I feel, to get down on my hands and knees to be pulling weeds and all that. I want containers to work in that.
Okay, so let's talk about this. All right, so the things that you do for your health, right? So first off, what do you get from the sun? Vitamin D. Now, a fun little fact I learned from my naturopath, Kim Brookman over at Quake, we are high enough up latitude, right? Longitude goes down. So latitude up from the equator, nobody north of Las Vegas gets enough vitamin D because we are just too far from the equator. So the sun's further from us.
Right.
So everybody needs extra vitamin D and should supplement for it to a certain degree because I know I have to. So with that said, first thing you get is vitamin D, or if it's a nice rainy overcast day, you get a little bit of moisture. Sunscreen is your friend, folks. We'll just say that as the white girl who burns when I just think about going out in the sun. You got to have a little bit of that protection. But also, there's microbes in the soil that are actually good for you. You get physical activity. I mean, there's so many different things. And they've actually taken horticulture therapy and instituted it into memory centers, assisted living homes, disabled children, disabled adults, elderly, you name it, because it's an interactive thing. I always tell new parents, they're like, I can't get my kids to eat vegetables. And I said, have them help you pick out the garden.
Right.
Have them go to the seed packets with you in March and pick them out. Have them grow them with you, because produce out of the garden tastes so much better when it's straight off the vine. But I think we actually have a professional here in the room. I'm going to pick on Rhonda a little bit. We kind of put her on the spot last minute yesterday with this. But so we're actually, Moss Greenhouses is responsible for the install of Sun Valley Resort. And so we grow the product, we plan out and design the product. I shouldn't say we, Rhonda plans out and designs the product. And then Moss Greenhouses crew installs it with Rhonda's guidance. And so that is a labor of love. It's probably the nicest way I can say that.
Yes, it is. It is. I take a lot of pride in the design, and the crew that goes up with me does a fabulous job. They all love doing this. So that makes a huge difference in the outcome.
Okay, so let's qualify this though, right? So there's gardening at home, where you can enjoy it at your own pace, on your own time frame. What time do you get up to meet the transport that goes north?
I'm up around 4:00 in the morning.
Exactly. Not your favorite time.
No.
And then you've got a crew of anywhere from 12 to 15 people.
Right. There's about 12 of us at any given time. And we install roughly, we figured out about 100,000 plants. No, that's
just a couple.
Yeah.
No
in
big thing.
a 2-week time span.
And so it's fast and furious. This is, taking it from a hobby at home to a professional level installation.
Yes.
And I'll be the first one to say Moss doesn't do any other installs of any kind.
Thank God.
Yeah, we're not a landscaping company. We've been working with Sun Valley Company for over 40 years. It's back 3 generations of my family. So we are the one that comes in and does just the flowers. I mean, we're not doing anything else.
No.
We're not weeding. We're not trimming shrubs. We're not mulching. That's not what we're doing.
No. This is just installation and run, basically.
So, okay, an average day out in the garden. All right, so you do a lot of gardening on the weekends,
I
right?
do.
Or yard work.
Yard work. Yard work.
Let's
That's
say
gardening.
work.
Yard work.
It's all the same.
So I try to spend all day on a Saturday and spend it out in the yard doing odd jobs.
Then what are you worth on a Sunday?
What am I worth on a Sunday? Well, then that's wife time and going out to dinner and watching TV.
You have a much more mellower Sunday
Absolutely.
after doing yard work all day.
Absolutely.
Because I know that I try to do a little bit all the time, but it'll compound.
Yeah.
And the thing about Mother Nature is it just keeps growing whether you want it to or not, which is a good thing in a lot of ways. So kind of if you can get the whole family to participate or to automate, like with drip lines and stuff, that's huge.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think that there was a documentary that I'd seen a couple years ago at American Hort, and this was a inner city garden, and they had school-aged children. Okay, and this has been replicated in a couple other cities to where if you have a garden, a greenhouse in an elementary school or a plot of land for kids to plant, they find that they have better outcomes in learning and in ADHD and all of that once they get their hands in the ground and they're planting, all of a sudden they've got memories here that are like, wow, we're going out to the garden. So there's that general excitement. So it would suggest that if you have greenhouses in schools, that your children are going to be much more behaved and much more willing to learn. And that's kind of the outcomes that they're seeing.
Well, and then there's the whole, and this is its own podcast on its own. We'll just scratch the surface here. Biophilia, which is not a weird fetish, believe it or not. It is the study of plants in indoor spaces and the effect it has on humans.
Right.
I mean, it increases attendance in workplaces up to 30%. It, if you so think of it, 1 plant per 100 square feet is basically the need or the footprint. They took those plants to NASA, to the Space Center, up in space in 1985, and were able to figure out exactly what plant did what. And so there's like the space plants, and they're the regular house plants you find in any grocery store or hardware or farm store or whatever. And literally putting 1 plant on your kid's desk while they do their homework
Yeah.
helps them retain the information better.
Mm.
And,
So
and not only
imagine that on a scale out in the out in the ground.
So when my granddaughter lived here in town, I would say, okay, we're going to plant some planters. And it would be like, really? Can I go pick out the plants, or the flowers?
Yeah.
I says, not only that, you can help design. Oh, okay. So you get children involved in gardening so much earlier. Yeah. They'll become gardeners for the rest of their lives. And that's
We want them to drink the Kool-Aid, or so
absolutely.
to speak, to swim in the dirt. I did that as a child. Granted, I did grow up in a greenhouse on a literal level, but
Right.
I remember when I was a little kid, we didn't have the assembly lines we have now, like kind of a factory style production of flowers. We had the trailers that you work with in your department, and they just roll them into what is now our retail greenhouse, and that's where we would plant all of our hanging baskets when I was a little kid, and I was like, 3 and 4 years old, maybe 5. And my mom would be out there and my grandma would be out there, and, the house was just out the side door. And so what I would do is I would go in there and I would swim through the dirt while they would plant and I would play. And that was just an easy way to babysit me and keep an eye on me. And it worked out really nicely. So I don't know. I get a lot out of gardening now, but I have found that I'm really good at biting off more than I can chew. Is that fair? I think,
in the garden?
Yeah, that's not what I said. That's a qualified statement across the whole of my life, probably. But in the garden, what I've caught myself doing is I'm going with less maintenance plants. And I'm trying to take a step back and say, you know what? That takes a lot of work. I don't have time for that, and it doesn't look how I want it to.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest goal this year is get a drip system installed.
Oh, you'll love it. You'll never go back.
I have no idea what that's like. Well, and you know what I'll do in the morning? So I go out and I water every morning because people are like, I have a black thumb. I can't do anything. It's like, how often do you water? I'm like, well, when it looks dry. Like, ooh, no. Plants need consistency, just like children, pets. You feed them every night. You feed them every morning. That's what you got to do to plants.
Oh, yeah.
But just think water. And then if you get on a fertilizer schedule that's just simple and fertilize for your needs. I do granular time release because I can't seem to think past that, and that seems to work when I pay the mortgage. Oh crap, I got to go fertilize. So that's really easy for me. So I can just build it into my month that way. But I find that the people who get out into the garden are staying healthier. They're living longer. What do I get asked for when we get calls? So Bridgeview got a hold of us a couple weeks ago. They want somebody to come and talk about plants because their residents really want to garden. It's something I hear about in assisted living homes all the time. Kids stuff all the time.
And what's become really popular here over the last couple of years?
Raised garden beds.
Raised garden beds, but inside. So where the manufacturers have figured this out, and they've got the aquaponics or hydroponic systems, okay, where you can sit on your kitchen counter or on the kitchen table. It's got the lights. It's got the 3 to 5 sockets for the vegetables, and they're doing indoor with the grow lights. And this is huge. I mean, you'd be surprised on how many units sold this year because I tried to order some for my kids and I couldn't get them. They were sold out. So this is what is, they're understanding that kids and adults like myself, I like that too, that this is something that can help bring up awareness for vegetable gardening and gardening in general. So it's cool.
And it always tastes better too, because if you're going to harvest it in Mexico, ship it up to Idaho and sell it in the grocery store, which is, a bulk of our produce. Well, when did they have to harvest it?
Yeah.
It wasn't ripe. It had to account for transport, right?
My oldest granddaughter, Grandpa, I hate tomatoes, but I like yours.
Full hooey.
But I like yours. Why? Because they were fresh. They were small, the cherry tomatoes.
And they tasted like straight sugar.
Yeah. So and it's all of a sudden, Genesis, don't eat all of my tomatoes.
Slow down, kid. I actually plant 4 cherry tomatoes for just one of my daughters because she is just ravenous for it. The other one, Gwen wants nothing to do with tomatoes. It's a texture thing for her, but we have once a year. During the season, I'm like, all right, it's an annual time. You got to try a tomato. Yep. And she always gets it down, but I have to bribe her with ice cream in the end. But we're getting closer all the time with her.
And what I've learned on vegetable gardening is that if you've got enough that you're feeding your family, okay, also enough that you are able to munch while you're working outside.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, when I lived in Oregon, Oregon's a great place for blueberries.
Oh, yes.
Okay. I had 12 blueberry plants. So I'd do some yard work, grab a handful of blueberries, do some yard work, grab a handful. And I do the same thing now, but now it's with broccoli or it's with cauliflower where I'm just picking it fresh out of the garden. And if you've walked with me on some of the walks here in the facility, if it's ready to eat, I'm picking it and eating it at the same time.
How many of us have snacked on strawberries in the baskets out in the greenhouse? Definitely done it. Does not stop me at all. They taste really good off the vine.
They really do.
Especially when I've been interrupted and it's like 3:00 and haven't had lunch. Well, I will graze through the West House in a second. So now I think that there's a whole movement of not only healthy food into your body, but the activity of gardening itself.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's going to help the serotonin in your brain raise. It's going to reduce cortisol in your system. It's going to have a chemical effect too, which is wonderful. I don't know if I ever told you about this, Dave. We went down, Lacey and I, to the Plug and Cutting Conference back in 2014, 2015, and they had a salad garden wall in the restaurant that you could order a salad and they would cut it right there and then when you ordered it. And I know we played with this idea of trying to sell it to actually Sun Valley and get the chefs involved. And we would grow the panels of lettuce and just rotate them out. I think we should try it with somebody a little closer because it'd be a little easier to transport. But I think it's a really cool concept. If you could order at a restaurant, because a lot of people aren't going to keep salad in there. There's plenty of people who would just keep salad on a wall. But the thing, the light is key. Drainage is key, the right kind of drainage, because if you get a vertical garden, which is great, you need to make sure you're not going to damage your facility, your structure, right? Especially if you rent, right? So you got to have something that's watertight or has the right proper drainage, and then you need the proper light, and then you got to have a fertilization system or protocol, and then decide on what you're growing, because there's also microgreens,
right,
which you could do in a little greenhouse. And basically what that is, for those who don't know, you just literally throw seed out on top of damp soil, keep it 100% humid to the best of your ability, so like a clear dome on top of it with a light, and you just, as soon as it's growing up, a couple inches, you trim it, and you can trim it. You can get about 3 or 4 trims out of a crop. And I mean, this is broccoli, radishes, Brussels sprouts, you name it, and the nutrients from those plants is in the leaves at that point. And so, yes, they taste like broccoli, they taste like peas, they taste like radishes, but they're just leaves.
Now, it was my understanding that at Microsoft, they had microgreen gardens so that their employees could have a nice salad if they wanted at lunchtime.
That's awesome.
And they always kept those going. Have you seen the restaurant there in the Ohio Convention Center when we go?
Yes.
Where they've got their microgreens
they do
right
have
there
their
on the wall.
microgreens
So
right there.
It's a cool concept.
It is a really neat concept. Do you grow very many vegetables?
I really don't. I'm like
You're
a 5-year-old.
I have a very close friend who is also, she eats like a toddler, but she grows vegetables like you would not believe. Her whole family loves them. If you puree it into a sauce, she's down. But you get her to eat just regular vegetables, she's like, no.
I'm getting better. my boyfriend, he's very much into vegetables. Yes, he prepares them much better than I ever did. So he can get me to eat them. So I'm doing better.
That's the same in my household. My whole family was like anti-veggie before they met me, and I roast everything. I don't saute. I don't just throw it in. I roast because it brings the flavor out differently. And
yes,
you don't overcook things as much that way.
Yeah, that's how Jacob's been doing it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do like a tree this year. So I'm going to have strawberries. So I'm going to have one level. Next level.
Bought one of these things.
Well, no, I'm going to make it. Okay. And I saw this on Pinterest. Okay. So they had strawberries, and I love strawberries.
Yeah.
To tree, 4 foot tall. So it's just up. I'm going, okay, this is cool, right? But there's so many other things you can do that with, radishes and stuff like that.
Peas and beans would
absolutely
thrive in that environment. Tomatillos would do really well in that, believe it or not. I mean, it'd be a mess. It would look like a tree when you were done.
Yeah.
There's no way around it. There's so many different things you can do with gardening that's just creative. So you can turn an art of gardening into art. And that's the beauty of it.
Yes,
So
definitely.
Well, okay, we'll wrap up this episode as we prepare to do the next. Guys, just for any listeners, we record them 2 at a time because if you want plants, the rest of us need to be out doing our job. It's kind of an important thing. But I do want to encourage everyone. We now are on every platform out there known to podcasting. Am I properly saying that? Production? Okay, fabulous. Thank you, Zach. And so if you're listening on iTunes, Spotify, doesn't matter. Go out and rank us and follow us so that we can get some organic growth. We're coming into the spring of 2023, and things are looking bright. And it's nice to say that on a day where it is 1 degree outside.
Yeah.
And with that, I'm going to wish everybody, I think it's Happy Valentine's would be about appropriate for this time when this will be released, as well as stay warm and make sure that you've got something cozy to go home to, okay? With that, we invite you to live life in full color because plain is pretty boring.